What is up, everybody? Scrubs No Debs here, Mr. Doodoo Butt, here with Mr. Yoru Rasa, here to make our first official tier list. What better way to start it off than to rank all the Nintendo consoles of all time? So let's get it going. Let's go with the Game Boy Color. Do you have any experience with the Game Boy Color?
Who does not have any experience with this? If you didn't have this one as a kid growing up, and I don't know if you really had a childhood, to be honest.
Straight up. Well, what was your favorite game to play on the Game Boy
The
Color?
Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Pokemon
Yellow, yeah. Because you got all the starters when you played Yellow. That's right.
Yellow. I added that one that actually came out with Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah, the Pikachu.
Yeah, that was
It's
beautiful.
the same one I had. I got Yellow with Yellow.
Yep, that was my very first one.
Brings back memories. So where are we thinking? I'm thinking somewhere between A and S, maybe the first real handheld that kind of revolutionized it all. Let's go with an S. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I would say for sure it's like the first real thing that really grabbed every kid's heart. It was just basically Pokemon, really. I don't really think I can remember any other real game I really played on like the Game Boy Color that I actually enjoyed. What about you?
Couple games come to mind. I played Tetris on it. Tetris was pretty fun on it.
Mm.
Donkey Kong Country was also another really good game that was on there. They had the Mario games on there. I mean, they had a decent amount of good games, but yeah, I mostly remember it for Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I remember it for.
Yep. I just wish I could have ever beat the Pokemon when back then. I remember just always getting stuck as some gym leaders.
That's crazy. I remember I finished it even though I was like 5 or 6 years old, but I don't know. Probably because somebody showed me how to beat it, but
Did we have what was it called? The cheat games back in that time?
yeah,
Cheat?
I think in order to use cheats, it was more like a separate thing that you put. I know I had it for the Game Boy Advance. It was like a little attachment thing that you would throw on. I think it was like Game Shark, where it'd like pull up all
Yeah,
the codes.
exactly. Yeah, you just like plug that in and then you plug the game on top of it. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go with what is this? The Virtual Boy
F.
F. Yeah, I don't have any experience with it. Didn't really sell much, right? Never played it. Never really heard much about it. I'm just gonna put it in F, just cause never used it. Never really heard much about it. Can't really say much about it. But if we're gonna put it anywhere, it's probably gonna go to the F tier.
Yeah.
All right, then. Let's keep things going. Did you ever play with the SNES?
I think I played this when I was at your house.
I
Did
never
we
owned
play
one.
like Mario Party?
No,
No?
if we're thinking Mario Party, that's Nintendo 64.
Was it? Are you sure?
100%.
Okay
Mario
then.
Party didn't come out until Nintendo 64.
Okay then. I really wouldn't. I can't really say I actually remember playing with that console,
Some
but I
some of
heard
the
good
games,
things about it.
some of the games on here had Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World. It had what else? Donkey Kong Country. Yeah, a lot of good games on there. Pretty sure Kirby started showing up on there. But I don't think I ever owned one of these. The only time I played one was when I was at either some friend's house when I was little and they had it. But my main memory was playing Yoshi's Island and hearing Baby Mario cry all the time, and that actually became one of my favorite games. It was really colorful. The music was fucking awesome. Oh, this console also I wouldn't say it birthed Metroid, but it had Super Metroid, which kind of was the first start of Metroidvanias as we know it, besides the Castlevania part, because Super Metroid was probably seen as the first big game to kind of get that formula right.
So wait, was this the one that started the Zelda series and the Final Fantasy series, or which one? Which one? Or that's the
Mm,
Nest? That was the
That's
Nest.
the first one. So this one kind of bumped it up and took it to the next level. This one had Final Fantasy VI, which is also known as Final Fantasy III. What'd you mention besides Final Fantasy?
Zelda.
Zelda, yeah, I had a Link to the Past, which was one of the biggest Zelda games, and the original SNES had the first two Zeldas, but the ones that are more beloved were definitely on the SNES. So it had a lot of good games for sure. But I just never owned one, so I can't really say too much about it. But I know it is held in a high regard.
You know, it was, if I remember correctly, a lot of people said really good things about it. I would probably give it like a B or A, just from like word of mouth when people told me about it.
Yeah, I played it and I definitely liked it when I played it. I kind of played it like in the early 2000s, so the hardware was kind of outdated by then. The
Mhm.
Nintendo 64 was already out. The GameCube was like kind of on the way out. I mean, I didn't really have much appreciation for the graphics from like when it first came out. This was definitely the better console between Nintendo and Sega, which were the only real competitors at the time. I would go ahead and just throw it at A tier because I know a lot of people love this console, and some might even say it's S tier, but just because I never really had it, I'm not gonna put it there. But I definitely enjoyed my time with it whenever I did play it.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good ranking for it.
Alrighty then, let's keep it moving in somewhat chronological order and go with the Nintendo 64. Did you have one of these?
Oh, if you did not have this one, you did not have the Game Boy Color. I really like, if you never even had like your friend like you did, you would just always go to the house so guys could play together. Like I don't know if you really had a true childhood. It's like you had to have had this growing up, so like to play games with your friends and beat the shit out of them. Were you playing like Mario Kart, especially,
Mario
or like
Kart,
GoldenEye?
Mario Party,
GoldenEye was
GoldenEye, Super Smash Bros. The first one. This kind of revolutionized Nintendo's console scene, brought all those great franchises together. It was the ultimate party console, the first one to have 4 controller slots. The SNES and pretty much most consoles before that, I'm pretty sure only had 2. Um, but yeah, so many good games. Can't really say much negative things about it besides the controller. The controller was kind of weird.
I remember you'd have your own secret way of like being able to fix it when like something was crappy was going on. Like you would like smack the shit out of it like 5, 10 times. And you put like cardboard in it. Like you can mess up sometimes, but it was interesting.
Yeah, the controllers were probably the worst thing about the console, but even then, it was still really fun to play with. The games were all great. It was the ultimate party console, and if you ask me, this one goes straight to S tier.
Without a doubt, no debate.
Alrighty, let's keep it going. After that was the release of the Game Boy Advance. I had one of these. I had this exact one actually, this purple looking one. A lot of great games on it too. Can't really say anything too negative. It was an upgrade over the Game Boy Color for sure. Graphics, visually, battery life for sure. I'm pretty sure you didn't have to put actual batteries in this in order to play it, unlike the Game Boy Color, which was pretty good at the time. I just don't know if it had that same impact that the Game Boy Color did, but it definitely holds up in my opinion. What's your experience with the Game Boy Advance?
I really wish I could say more good things about it, but honestly, it did not have such a great impact as the Game Boy Color. The only thing I remember I played a shit ton on it was like Yu-Gi-Oh, like the dice game out, and
The
then
dice game.
yeah, there's a dice monsters. You know, it was like that was so long ago. Like, I remember we playing that, just being basically the Yu-Gi-Oh games and the Pokemon games, but other than real that, it didn't really like, oh my gosh, this is super cool. But it was good. It was a nice change of pace over the Game Boy Color. You can still play the Game Boy Color games though.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was one thing that I really loved about it was that you could just throw your Game Boy cartridges on the back of it. It looked weird as hell, but it still worked.
And yeah, it was okay. It was okay. I would say it's like a good B. I wouldn't really say it's A. I would say it's like a B. I would say
Or would
you give
it
it
be
B because it was so portable. It was like very ergonomically well. I remember that. It was pretty good to hold in your hand, other like the Game Boy Color, which was a little bit too squishy or too like narrow, honestly.
Yeah, and also the screen was way better because I remember the Game Boy Color was very hard to see when it was bright sun outside, and the Game Boy Advance, while it wasn't perfect, it definitely was much better than the Game Boy Color. And also even at nighttime, because I remember the Game Boy Color, you had to get like a little flashlight attachment in order to see at night.
Wait, since this is a Game Boy Advance, are we including the Game Boy Advance SP in this or just the Game Boy Advance?
I mean, yeah, I would account for it because it played the same exact games.
Yeah, I would give it a good B. I would give it a good B, especially when it came out with the SP. I really liked that. It was a little bit more compact. It was like I can really like carry this a little bit more often and not have to worry about.
Oh yeah, the
Oh,
SP was definitely the better version, just because it was more portable than the original. Just because mainly you could fold it.
yeah. So I would give it a good solid B.
Um, the GameCube I also had. Did you have a GameCube?
Yeah, I did. I actually really, really enjoyed the GameCube. I wish I could put it in S tier, but I would give it a good solid A. I think it could have. No, actually, I don't know. There was some really good games that I really love, like Game Boy, the Pokemon, um, XD, things like that nature, kind of like, and then Zelda. And I don't really know. I can't really say I 100% really enjoyed the GameCube too much though. It has some nice games, but not a lot.
I mean, if this is just my opinion, I would say the GameCube is better than the 64 because it pretty much did everything the 64 did. It had better graphics, obviously, because it was newer. The games, while they weren't the first games to come out, Melee was definitely better than the original Smash. Mario Kart Double Dash was better than the original Mario Kart, in my opinion. You had all the Mario sports games, which were pretty much better than the ones before. I just think the GameCube did pretty much everything the 64 did, but just better for what it was at the
Well,
time. It
then we
also,
had Animal Crossing.
yeah, the first Animal Crossing came out on the GameCube. It had other niche titles like Beautiful Joe. I remember playing that. Um,
Oh,
had Bat and Kaitos. It had some good
wait,
games. Super Monkey Ball. It had
did that have
Sonic.
Sonic games?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. That was pretty good at the time.
it
Had a
had
lot of really
Resident
good
Evil 2
games.
too, right?
Yeah, it had Resident. No, I don't know if it had Resident Evil 2. I know I had the original Resident Evil remake, which was also really good. But yeah, there was a lot of good games on the GameCube for sure.
Oh yeah, and then there's Spider-Man 2. Oh, I really liked Spider-Man 2 on that game. You know what? Yeah, now that I get it remembering, well, there was actually a lot of pretty good games on it. I can't really say. Oh, Soul Calibur 2.
Soul Calibur
Did
2
it?
was on.
Did it first come out on the GameCube?
That was actually a GameCube. No, it wasn't exclusive. It was on other consoles, but it was a really good game. Had Soul Calibur. Had Pikmin also. Had the Mario Party games. Had Kirby games. Kirby Air Ride. I remember playing that.
Oh, there's Luigi's Mansion. That was nice too.
Luigi's
And
Mansion, birthed that
what's
franchise. Metroid Prime was a big deal, even though I never really played those games. Had Wind Waker, had the Twilight Princess game. So I had a lot of really good games.
hey, you know what? I would say give it a good. I don't know if I really want to say S though, but I would say at least an A.
I'm
What do you
gonna
think?
go ahead and put it in S tier just because I really think it did everything the Nintendo 64 did, but it just did it better. All right, then. Now moving on to the Wii. Wii was good. It was definitely not a bad console. Um, I don't know if the motion controllers were uh necessarily the best. They were definitely very janky. Worked sometimes, it didn't work other times. Um, I don't know. This one's hard for me because I did like the Wii, but I did not like how most of the games had to include the motion stuff. and the ones that did, sometimes it was like very hit or miss. Uh, I did like playing Mario Kart on this. It was pretty fun where you could like move the controller, steer it around like you were actually driving. That was pretty fun. But yeah, I don't really know. This one's a tough one for me. The good thing about the Wii was that it was backwards compatible. And also, if you flip the top, it basically worked as a GameCube. You could throw the GameCube CDs in there, which was pretty cool. If I had to put this somewhere, I don't know, man. I'm thinking B, maybe low A, but I don't know.
I would say it was a really great concept, but it was just too early. It was very, very early. Like the marketing wasn't great. You know, it
The
didn't
marketing
didn't
wasn't
have
great. The marketing was the only great thing about it.
uh,
Remember when we would like to play, where the guys would just show up, then they fucking start playing? You don't remember those commercials?
no, I don't.
Oh
I don't
my
remember
god.
every single Wii commercial.
I remember the Wii commercials all the time. That was like one of the main reasons that drew me into playing it or getting one. So I don't know if the marketing wasn't great for it because it's one of the best Nintendo selling consoles of all time. It sold more than the GameCube. It sold more than the 64. It sold more than the SNES. The only thing it didn't sell more than is the Switch.
Oh, okay, that never mind it. Yeah, I would say it was. I think it had a really good concept in general, though. But like you said, the technology wasn't really there. What it was trying to accomplish, but it was a good starting point. But I wouldn't say there was too many things that really made it enjoyable. So I personally would put it at a C. But I never owned one. I only played it when I went to your home.
Mhm.
So I can't, don't really take my opinion too hard on that one.
I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the B tier because it is one of the best selling consoles of all time. It was the only console to really be centered around motion controllers. And even though I wouldn't say it worked all the time, it definitely worked more times than not. And it was fun for the time because it was just different. But I just don't think there was as many must play games on this compared to some of the other consoles on here. And for that reason, I'm gonna put it in B tier. And then after that, let's go with the Nintendo DS. Did you have one of these?
Oh yeah, I definitely had that one. I had that one, and then I had the 3DS. But the 3DS was a little bit, different. I like that they kept it separate here because honestly, it's a little bit too different for them to really be considered the same type of console. The original, it was good. It was good. It was nice, but you know, it was just kind of like a Game Boy Advance to me. It kind of like seemed a little gimmicky at first, and then when the 3DS came out, I was like, oh, okay, this is where I started to enjoy it, and like I even played the game where you can get pets, and like you feed
Oh, the
them,
Nintendogs?
yeah, Nintendogs, and like take them on walks and feed
Yeah.
them and stuff, tricks that. Like that really kind of like, oh, that was like really, really nice where I actually enjoyed it. But the original, I can't really say I enjoyed it too much. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is a better Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I had both of them as well. I think I enjoyed my time with the 3DS more, just because it had more games to play. Felt like a more fleshed out version of the 3DS. But I mean the DS was interesting at the time when it first released. It was like you said, kind of gimmicky. I mean, it was like when Nintendo was getting really gimmicky with the Wii and uh and the two screens. And then after that they released the Wii U, which isn't actually on here, but that's fine. Um but yeah, the original DS was good for what it was. I don't really remember playing too many games that actually incorporated the two screen system thing that properly. It was kind of like the Wii. you had the idea for the two screens, but it didn't really feel like they were utilizing it that well with the games that would actually come out with it. At least not until the 3DS. Where were you thinking about putting the original DS?
For the original, I would put it like at a C.
At a C?
I
Yeah,
would put it at a C.
I could see that.
It was,
What about the 3DS? What are you thinking about the 3DS?
I wish I could say A, but it just didn't have a lot of games that really stood out to me. Like there was the Nintendo, there was like Pokemon. I remember playing even Animal Crossing on it, but the really I would say enjoyed like the aspect of the 3DS is really hard to say. Can't really say that it really captured my heart in what it offered, but it was nice. So I would give it at a B, to be honest.
I mean, the 3DS was nice because the screen was definitely way bigger than the original. You could notice it, especially if you had the XL version. Um, the games were good. It had pretty much the good thing about the 3DS that I remember is you could pretty much play any of the handheld games that existed from Nintendo up to that point on
Yeah.
the Nintendo shop,
Sure.
from the classics, from the Game Boy Advance to the original DS to the Game Boy Color. So yeah, I think the Nintendo shop was really good for it, and it did have a lot of games to choose from, but I just don't know if it had many games that actually utilized the 3D features that was the main selling point for it. And it was kind of like the Wii, like you have this concept to use 3D, but it doesn't feel like your big games are really utilizing that idea
Yeah.
really well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put it behind the Wii, and yeah. And now that I think about it, I'm gonna put the Wii ahead of the Game
You know
Boy
what?
Advance.
I would change my thoughts, honestly. I think I would have put the DS at a D and the 3DS as a C, honestly, because I think the Game Boy Advance and the Wii, uh, at least for the Game Boy Advance, in my opinion, was just initially just had way more impact than the 3DS. If I think of it in that aspect and how enjoyable it was, I wouldn't, I couldn't say that I really would put the 3DS next to a Game Boy Advance.
I'm not gonna argue with you. I'll go ahead and drop them down a tier. Um, I don't really have any sentimental attachments with either of these two handhelds. I did have both of them, and they kind of just came and went for me. I mainly remember playing Pokemon games on them, and some Mario games, probably some RPGs, but not too many. It was all right for what it was, but it, like you said, it didn't really feel as impactful as the systems above it.
Yep.
And on to the last Nintendo console, the Nintendo Switch, the one we are on currently, the one that's about to end its current life cycle. Hopefully, we get a new Nintendo console next year. We will find out, though. What are your thoughts about the Nintendo Switch?
Definitely the best one so far, you know. Really good games that have been really enjoyable. The battery life is good, the quality is good. Especially with Zelda, and then I really enjoyed the Pokemon games, and in the fact that you were able to buy various different games as well, like even blast from the past ones. It was very nice. I think it was overall a really good one. I can't say I have a lot of sentimental values, but overall aspects of it, it's the best so far.
So you'd put this in S tier above everything?
Yeah, I think honestly, because of everything that it offers, I would put it in S tier. But as far as sentimental value, I would not put it above everything regarding sentimental value. What about you?
I
What
mean,
is your take on
I think the Switch is somewhere between an S and an A. It definitely offers the most out of all of these. You could pretty much play the classic games. You could play PS4 games. You could play new Nintendo games. So it has a lot of variety. It has ports. It has just a ton of games that you could play on it. And for that reason, I could agree with you. But the other reason I wouldn't necessarily put it in S tier is just because even though the portability aspect of it is kind of revolutionary, we never really had Bayonetta, things like that, where they're like true real 3D games on the go. It is revolutionary for that purpose, but I just don't know if it I don't know if the technical aspect of it has been able to carry it this far because if you do play some of the more modern games on it, it does tend to drop frames easily. The quality on when you play on handheld and even on dock mode is not even close to the consoles of even last generation. So I don't feel like it's from a technical standpoint, I don't feel like it holds up as much as some of the other things right here because in even into the late development of games, it never really felt like other games had trouble running on their current console like the way the Switch does.
That's always what I really felt that really hindered that is just that, like you said, is comparing to the even last generation consoles for like the PlayStation. It's not, it doesn't even come close to the quality. It does have some good aspects about it, but even then, um, us adults now, we would much prefer to play like a console game rather than really utilize that portability. The portability is like nice, but it doesn't really make up for its lack of graphics and like the lack of quality. Like
The performance issues that
yeah, the performance issues and stuff like that we don't have with like the PlayStation 4. Yeah, I would say it's a good A, it's fine.
I'm gonna go ahead and maybe throw it at the end of the S tier because I do really like the portability aspect. There's never really been a console that you could take on the go like this one. I mean, obviously we've had other handhelds, but this one kind of, took it to the next level where you could actually feel like you're playing console games on the go. And for that reason, I just think it kind of has to be an S tier, and it's kind of spawned this whole new kind of idea of a console that you can take on the go with kind of like similar concepts being released with like the Steam Deck and like other third party consoles. So it definitely changed the industry, but I just don't know if the end of its lifespan has been quite as memorable as like the last half of it hasn't been really as memorable as the first half for sure.
No, no, yeah, I could definitely say that for sure. Yeah, it's a good spot. Like, yeah, it's between like the S and A. Like, it's still good for what it offered, but it just, it really, if you to really solidify it, just like with the performance issues and just the picture quality, if those were just a bit better, that would have been definitely solidified it in the S tier. But it's just kind of meeting that bare minimum to stay there.
Yeah, can't really say too much bad about it besides that, it is one of the best selling consoles of all time. It has a lot of great games on it. Does work on the go. It works for multiplayer as well. It's pretty much the ultimate Nintendo console, but let's just hope the next Nintendo console they make improves upon what they did with the Switch.
Fingers crossed, man. I know they don't pay their CEOs a lot, and I hope that all that money that they're, putting into the company is really gonna pay off next generation.
Well, that is going to do it for our tier list. Let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. Leave a like if you liked it. This is going to do it for our first tier list. Any final words, Yodawasa?
Just let us know if you agree, especially regarding that Wii. Let me know what you guys think about it, and especially what was the other one in the B8 tier? I forgot the name.
The SNES, Super Nintendo.
Yeah, Yeah, I want to know people's thoughts on it, with how what their experiences were on it, because I never had those two. So it'd
Also,
be nice to know
let
their
us know if you ever fucking played with this thingy down here, because I never even knew it existed until like a few years ago. All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Peace out.